welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show, 5th segment. This is something new we're doing, Brian.
It's so new.
We did it just kind of because we needed to last week, to where we didn't have enough time to contain everything. Kind of the same this week with Justin and Elizabeth Crandall.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about Hop Soul Brewing.
That's right.
But we didn't get a lot of time with you because it was more about Elkmont Exchange.
Yeah.
So we would encourage you to go listen to the Elkmont episode. But we wanted to talk with you more about Virginia and Brunswick, Georgia, and crabbing and trailer parks and monster trucks.
And shrimping.
And shrimping. Shrimping ain't easy, Brian.
Oh,
That's
I've
what
heard
we're
that.
about.
I've heard
Easy.
that.
So for those that don't know, what is Hop Soul Brewery?
So we're a hop focused brewery. We're really trying to figure out what the market wants in Brunswick, Georgia. You know, it's a beer desert down there,
Right.
So we really are looking to go down there and kind of open a brewery, and it's going to be the first brewery in the area. 200,000 people that travel through there. So we really want to see.
And the 2 million tourists.
Yeah, 2
that
million
have,
tourists
and they're from Atlanta, and they have no freaking beer down there.
Because
It's
Brunswick is right off
insane.
I-95. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's on the way. If you're coming from Atlanta or Athens, it's the Golden Isles Parkway. It's straight shot. It's the first place to go to the beaches. Really, in Georgia, you have Tybee Island, St. Simons, and Jekyll. Those are the main beaches, and we're in the area of St. Simons and Jekyll.
Yeah, so we're the spot you hit when you're going to St. Simons or Jekyll. Like the exit you have to get off to go to the beach, that's us.
So how far do people right now, before you've opened, have to go to get locally brewed craft beer?
You're either relegated to Jacksonville or Savannah. So that's an hour north, an hour south.
Okay.
Like I said, there's 200,000 people that drive into Brunswick, and there's 2 million visitors a year that go there, and there's no brewery.
And there's like a super small outfit in St. Mary's, right? Brackish?
Yeah,
I
Brackish.
think. So,
Brackish
Which
Brewing
is
comes
a
started
very
there.
cool dude.
yeah.
But he's doing kind of small volumes because he's really he has another business, so he's doing it small and growing it.
He has a killer Kolsch she does
organically.
down there.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
So
we saw a little brewery in Canton, Georgia, Green Line Brewing.
Mm-hmm.
And when we finally got up there to talk to them, because they'd be open, then they were closed for a little while, then they were open, and someone would say they ran out of their beer. And we got up there and talked to one of the owners, and essentially what it is his wife told him he was taking up too much space homebrewing.
Sounds
so
familiar.
him and his buddies bought a tiny building. And
Yep.
he's like, this is basically just a homebrew clubhouse.
Yeah.
We can brew twice a week. If we run out of beer, we keep other beers on.
Yeah.
And because when I was hearing the stories about him, Brian, I was like, wow, this is no way to run a brewery. They don't care.
Well,
They're having a good
Yeah.
time.
They
I'm like, you know what?
they
Go
don't
for it,
mind at
guys.
all.
So,
With SB 85, I mean, that's
Sure.
going to open the door for nano breweries. I mean, you're going to see a lot of that happening because
small.
being able to sell in the tap room, I mean, you have to, when you're doing distribution, you have to sell 3 to 4 times as much beer to make it worthwhile, and with a tap room, I mean, you can sell a couple hundred barrels of beer and make a lifestyle out of it. I mean,
because that
lifestyle
changed your
breweries.
plans, right? I mean,
Right.
you totally revamped your plans. With
Right.
the
I've been
Meadows.
bouncing around back and forth looking for locations and, going back between distribution or brew pub. Back before SB85, brew pub was probably the most profitable looking venture for me to do because, a nice thing about brew pub too is you can brew a lot of beers and not be constricted to 3 or 4 core brands. With distribution, you really have to push those beers. And as we know today, I mean, everyone wants to know what's the new beer you have on tap.
Sure.
That's the market that we're in, and really, it's almost like a seasonal market. Over time, I've been kind of leaning more towards brew pub, and then the law changed, and it was like, well, this is going to make sense. And with our location being in a restaurant and everything, it's like, we could do the brew pub and we can do food.
Right.
So we're going to lean more towards brew pub.
Now, if you're a regular listener of Beer Guys Radio, you know this, and we've probably said it way too much for you to care about, but SB 85 was a law that passed in Georgia in 2017, last year, that allowed breweries to do direct sales, breweries to do direct sales out of the tap room, and also allowed a production brewery to sell food. So you can kind of have a blended model there, but it's opened a lot of growth and expansion.
Well,
if
you look to West Coast breweries, I mean, where American craft beer started, it started in brew pubs. I mean, you talk about Russian River, you talk about any of the brew pubs out west, and they all started as brew pubs, and that's because that's what the most profitable venture they can make, so they can invest in tanks to grow the distribution side.
Right.
And in Georgia, when you're restricted from that, you can't. A small guy like me can't start up. So when that door opened, it was like, all right, let's get this tap room thing going, and then grow the distribution side and see where it goes. We want to see what the local market wants to drink and go from there.
So are you thinking about going with a non-distribution model, like all out of the tap room? Is that
pretty much?
kind of the plan?
We're like 90% tap room, 10% distribution. Really. Unless I'm like one of these breweries that hits a gold mine, and I'm a Trillium or somebody out there that's just got a killer New England IPA. Maybe that'll like force me into distribution more. But really, I want to see what people want to drink down there. See what grows real good, and then we'll see where the brewery goes from there.
So I think you mentioned earlier, what styles are you going to start out with? I think you had a couple of different particular styles that were definitely going to.
We're a hop focused brewery. I just love how hops to me is like wine grapes varieties. There's a lot of terroir with it. Like there's you go to different regions like Australia, Germany, England, United States, Yakima Valley. All these different regions grow different hops, and they come out with new hops every year. And I really want to focus on the flavors that you get from those hops. And so, experimental varieties, things like that, I really want to play with those and kind of see where those take me. And then at the same time, I'm a home brewer at heart, so I just want to do a whole lot of different beers as well. I want to do dark, I want to have a dark style. I want to have sours. I want to do that thing. But we're going to be mostly hop focused, and we'll have IPAs. And my brewery, it really is kind of like a West Coast meets East Coast type of brewery. So, I love the West Coast style IPAs, a little bit of bitterness, which is kind of like everybody's going towards New England style IPAs right now. And, the thing that New England's lacking with New England IPAs is that bitterness profile and that balance.
They're not lacking. That's an opinion, man.
Yeah.
They're not lacking that, so.
They're delicious in themselves,
Sure.
but I don't know if you can really like put them in a box and say these are IPAs necessarily. They're almost their own style of beer.
That's the classic debate now.
Right.
Is this an IPA?
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's like, when you go in a bar and you order IPA, it's like nowadays you don't know what kind of IPA you're going to get. It might be clear, it might be, bitter, or it might be hazy and juicy and, pillowy, all those sort of things. So it's really kind of, I think the New England style almost needs its own, category. And
I
stuff,
think there's
so.
a lot more people that are starting to say that now, that it's ventured off, but again,
you start adding lactose and fruit and everything, and it's like you're on a whole other
milkshake, smoothie, banana cupcake, double-decker IPA or something like that. New England style.
Yeah, indeed. Yes, double-decker.
And I'm a BJCP judge myself, so like I appreciate classic styles in that they give us some sort of definition for what things are, and so when and another thing is when customers order things, that's they know what to look for. You order a brown ale, you kind of expect a certain parameter of
you know what
beer.
you're getting there, right?
Yeah, but when you go order an IPA, it's right now it's all over the gamut. You literally could get anything and everything.
Well, you kind of have to know, like a New England's going to have to be stated as a New England. A West Coast will have to be stated as a West Coast, because if I go out and I order an IPA and some of them will say, hey, hazy IPA. So I see hazy, I typically think New England.
Yeah, right.
But there's a few people that trick you, and it's more of a hazy West Coast.
Right.
And I don't like that.
Right.
I don't
or
like a bitter IPA.
Or they just didn't clear it up, and then they say it's
Let's say it's hazy.
Let's say it's hazy. Well, same thing with like Pilsners. Pilsners, the same thing. Like there's a lot of Pilsners coming out now that are, dry hopped and not dry hopped, and there's kind of a blur between what's a Pilsner and what's not a Pilsner.
But you know what? I think that's kind of cool, because I think the dry hop Pilsner is the bridge to bring craft drinkers into the land of Pilsner.
Yeah, it's like the pale ale. It's like the pale ale
for
ales as the Pilsners for lagers.
And it could be a segue for non-craft drinkers to start exploring that. If they know they like Pilsners, well, I like Pilsner beers, maybe they'll try this, because Quench here at Ironmonger has got some dry hops in it, but it's not intense. So you get a little more flavor, but you still have the familiarity of a Pilsner.
And if you're intrigued by that, you might explore what's like a pale ale or something else. And I got to say that anything that's a hazy West Coast IPA, I think, is missing the mark. Even the people that are making it will know that, even if they don't admit it, that hazy West Coast is not the thing. That's not the target.
Because West Coast should be crisp and clean.
It should. It should be clear. It should have a bite
for
to
now,
it. Yeah.
But
until a few years from now,
this
it's like a mango hazy West Coast.
Right.
This is America, damn it.
I don't need soft pine or soft grapefruit. I think that those things need to be the way they are. It's
well,
they're
that's
not
it.
juicy
They should
typically.
be
they should be sharp.
palate cleansing and sharp and all that. So
I think think the theory is you just have to be moldable. And if you're just
Sure.
not like small and you can just like change on a whim based on what people want and what's the new thing, you're just not really up to par now.
And you've got to be ready, to roll with it there.
You
What's
have
coming?
to.
What
And
is the new trend? Because
right.
especially in craft beer, I love craft beer. I love beer people, beer geeks, whatever you want to call them. But we're a finicky bunch.
Yeah.
And
We
taste
get
change.
bored.
and
What's the
that,
new beer
so-
on tap? You know.
Yeah,
Sure. What's
we
the
like
newest?
that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's wrong with having a brewery that's like, I'm going to be the new beer on tap?
Yeah.
You know, like, why have a staple? Why have 3 things that are your things you make? You know?
And that's what people are finding now. In the market research is showing that people don't really have that anymore. They're kind of agnostic to those brands. So like they'll pick up anything, they'll try new things. They're not married to a brand.
Well, I think,
they want the newest
at
thing.
the same time, I think, as a craft beer consumer, we tend to kind of have our own little group, and there's
Sure.
a lot of beer drinkers. I mean, Georgia
There
is, one of the top 10 beer drinking states in the country. And I think you can't ignore that either. I mean, we have a lot of opportunity to bring people into craft beer. So if we focus too much on that side of things, I mean, you're going to miss out on a lot. So.
Well, it's interesting that when we get together to drink beer, our group drinks a certain way.
Right.
Your
Yeah,
friends
yeah,
drink.
yeah.
It's common
we taste,
for
It's
It's common
we're
for.
not volume. We're
Right.
quantity, like quality. Not
I'm both.
quantity.
I want,
Well, you're both. You're
volume
both.
and quantity, but
I can't do both.
we'll
but
get
I'll
together,
try.
and it's common for 6 or 8 of us to open one can or one bottle and pass it around, and then move on to the next beer. And I can remember inviting new people to come over and hang out with us and that, and they're just thrown by we'll open a beer and they're cracking one and pouring a full glass and that. Which I mean, I'm not saying that it's our style is unique because we want to try so many beers. In a day we may try 30 beers, but that may equate to 3 or 4 full beers per
Well,
person,
I think that's
so.
what you're seeing in the IRR data that you were talking about in the news segment before, is that there's a squeeze happening between large brewers and small brewers, and part of that is because the craft beer consumer drives a lot of that. I mean, we want to try new stuff, so hyper local. We want 24 beers on tap. We want to try all these crazy different flavors, and the guys that like New Belgium, their Fat Tire is not stepping up to it.
Sure.
That's a volume beer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a volume beer versus a local craft beer kind of situation, and that's where the industry is heading. Is like we're getting there's a squeeze happening with the regional brewers for the most part. They're struggling right now because in order for them to make the numbers make sense, they have to produce 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 beers, and and if the numbers don't make sense, they're going to lose the volume, and the numbers aren't going to look good.
Sure.
Whereas the local guys are going to step up and fill that need. Now, if and I think that's where you're seeing like a lot of these like founders and all these breweries pushing 12-packs, 16-packs of craft beer. They're really trying to bring in those non-craft beer drinkers.
Right, absolutely. And that's
I think that's where the industry is heading right now. That's that you're going to see a lot more
for the non-local.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot more like
non-local.
12-packs and things like that of beers made by craft brewers to help bring in some new craft beer drinkers.
Because if you want to get the guy that's drinking the Bud Light or the Coors Light and that, when he goes out and picks up beer for the weekend, he's not grabbing a 6-pack normally.
No.
He's getting the 12 or the 24 pack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they've started. I don't know if you noticed in the grocery stores, they've started to realize that, and you'll see some of the bigger regional brewers, they're starting to do that. And it all started with All Day IPA. Founders all day.
Yeah.
I mean, they were the trailblazers for that kind of economics. And for them it works. And I think it's we really do need those kind of breweries to help bring more people into craft beer, because we're going to start fighting among ourselves.
Yeah. They are an interesting case study because they continue to be plus. That solid gold thing that they came out with, it's all in cases of cans, and I mean they're killing it. 50% increase or 50% plus increase. That's
I will say that number shocks me.
It's huge.
Like to hear that with founders because of their size already.
Yes,
for them to see that kind of growth, that's impressive.
You got to listen to the customers. The customers will tell you what they want.
Always tell you what they want.
And it's a balance. You have to balance a little bit. They have that. They have the solid gold, but then they have their other portfolio,
KBS and CBS, and
so
the bastard lines,
bastard lines.
Yes.
So Founders is a new Budweiser, pretty much is what I'm saying.
Oh man, brutal!
Man.
Shots fired.
Very good, very tasty.
When we do a sound clip to tease people to listen to this show, That's the one that we're using right there. So.
Oh, no.
Direct quote, Justin
from
Crandall,
Hop Pilsner Brewery in Brunswick, Georgia.
We do not eat Budweiser at Burbutt.
Yeah, Founders is the new Budweiser.
So are they offering me $1 million to buy my brewery?
You're going to sell out before you even open.
No, we are not.
No shame in my game.
That's right.
So I heard a rumor that you're planning on bringing some water in from your hometown to brew beer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did I hear that right?
The whole time in Flint, Michigan, we're going to import the water.
Nice. Yes. So they're all going to be hazy beers, is what you're saying.
Pretty much.
Right?
With a little bit of lead.
You might want to test them before you drink them, but it'll be good.
Did we talk about your location yet here in this fifth segment, chat? I know we talked about it on the regular show.
I don't think we did.
Yeah.
You know what? So
it's
folks,
very, very creative.
Folks need to know about your location.
So we're going to the old Shoney's off of I-95. We're turning it into a brewery. So
it's just interesting in itself. You should come check it out.
Yeah.
Once we're done, of course.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't make sense. Most breweries go into a more production like industrial area.
Right.
But on the East Coast that's not so common. On the West Coast, there's a lot of breweries that actually went into old restaurants and things like that.
Yeah, it's very common.
And part of the reason is the zoning is correct. You don't have to go rezone a location.
Okay.
The alcohol licensing is good because there's no churches or you're in a restaurant specific area,
Okay.
and the location's great because people that go to restaurant, these Shoney's has figured this out. They did all the market research. It's kind of like if I went into a McDonald's, you're pretty much guaranteed that location is the most
the prime place for it to be,
like
right?
Good real estate,
right? So they did a lot of
research.
research and where to go, and so by going into a Shoney's, that's one aspect I get is the marketing and the location and everything. But the other aspect of it is there's 2,500 square feet of kitchen with floor drains, with gas, with 3-phase power. There was 2 walk-in coolers already there. I mean, there's a lot of setup ready for a brewery to go in there. And so, for me, I'm a all cash kind of guy, and so I try to do things with cash. And going into a brewery like that makes somebody like me, a smaller brewer with 10-barrel system, be able to do that without having to ask a bank and investors and all this sort of thing to open up a brewery.
Sell your soul.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
your hop soul.
Yeah, right.
Sell your hop soul.
Sell your hop soul.
Yeah.
So it's that just all kind of made sense. And in Brunswick, Georgia, there's a St. Simon's Island, there's Jekyll Island, and there's Brunswick. So there's not really a real defined area. Everybody's kind of segregated. And so where that location was, it met the need for the majority of Brunswick, Georgia, most blue collar, beer drinker type people, that's kind of what made sense.
So a serious question that I hope does not offend you or your local customers to come, but is that market ready for craft beer?
We're going to make them ready.
We're going to find out.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to find out about that.
Ready.
I've been brewing for 12 years, and I'm a BJCP judge, and I'm very adverse in the classic styles, and there's beers out there that I know will bring people in, and I plan on offering those beers. If you say you want a wit beer, or you want a Guinness, or you want something similar, I need those beers in my portfolio to bring you in, and then I want you to be able to try the other stuff. Because I have served rednecks, in South Georgia.
Oh my God!
Gotcha.
For 5 years,
I've served them I've served them double IPAs.
Converted.
I've served them
All
double
right.
IPAs, and they will drink double IPAs.
And now
So
they're all
you've done
craft
your
beer
market
drinkers.
research
Yes,
there.
Absolutely.
That's it. You spent years converting the market to
Absolutely.
make them ready for it, right?
They don't know it. They don't know they need a craft brewery, but they definitely
Okay.
want it.
They definitely
Yeah.
do. We have had so many people. Well, because he brews so much. I mean, like an insane amount of volume that we can never drink through. So we have lots and lots of parties at the house, like get people to drink it up. And we have converted so many people in South Georgia to craft beer. Whereas when they were with us, they were like Miller, Bud, bringing it to our parties.
Yeah.
And then within like just a couple visits,
Yeah.
they like
you
are
give any Miller, Coors
completely-
drinker a Hellas. I mean, they're
Right.
they're already
Yeah.
in the door, and you just kind of guide them along the way to craft beer.
So we've established there's a need in the area
There's
for
totally
craft
a
beer.
need.
Yeah.
When are you going to fill that need? When are you planning on opening up?
Hopefully October 1st. I plan on September 1st, but October 1st. I mean, being the first brewery in an area, there's a lot of challenges with the local authorities to make it happen and education. I actually had to change the laws locally to allow a brewery down there to do what I want to do. And so there's been some delays, but I plan on October 1st, at least, getting beer to the market down there. So,
cool. Using Tim's math, we'll see you in April of 2019.
No.
We know how it goes.
That's why I'm in a Shoney's. That's why I chose a restaurant, so that those delays won't happen. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, Justin and Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us and chatting with us, doing this 5th segment, this extra. Y'all been here a little while, drinking some beers and talking.
Yes, sir.
It's been so much fun.
Yes.
So if folks want to keep up with your progress and see when you're opening up, what's going to be the best way for them to do that?
You can check us out at our website, www.hopsoulbrewery.com, or you can go to Facebook, Hop Soul Brewery, or Instagram. So
very cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
You're listening to Beer Guys Radio 5th segment. Something new we're messing around with here, Brian.
So new.
It's kind of loose, unstructured, having fun with it. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to drink local. Cheers.
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 The Beer Guys Radio Show on the Beer Guys Radio Network. BeerGuysRadio.com.